And so I am here today with Carol Harrison. Hi, Carol. Good to
Hi.
see you. And we are talking about a new anthology called Creativity and Chaos Artistic Endeavors for Trying Times. It's a new anthology coming out by InScribe Press. And Carol has a couple of pieces in this anthology. That's right, isn't it? You've got two pieces, do you, Carol?
Yes, one poem and one nonfiction piece.
Wow, wow. Well, that's really cool. I'm noticing, so the nonfiction piece is called Creating Junk Journals, and I was really interested in that title. And I have seen some of your beautiful work. You know, they're called junk journals, but in fact, they're works of art, really. Tell us a little bit about that piece and what inspired you to write it, and maybe just some background to that art form.
Well, the art form itself, I didn't know too much about, and I started researching it because I was writing a book called Memory Making Moments. And my character was going to make a junk journal or something similar. And so I had to try it for myself. Found out that it's really good art therapy, so it's good for mental health. And it's just kind of takes you away from that chaos and your to-do lists and all those types of things that daily life has in it. And it gets you a chance to use your creativity in a different way than writing or any other type of art form.
Mhm. So as I say, I've seen some of your junk journals. I hate using that word because they're not junk. But I guess that term comes from like you're making a beautiful um object of art, I guess, out of junk or discarded paper products, if you will. Is that like, can you just tell
Well,
us a little bit more what would you
sure.
call a junk journal?
Originally, they were called junk journals because the people who made them only used recycled materials.
Hmm.
So instead of it going to recycle, they would use it, whether it was paper bags or scraps of paper or tickets or receipts, even like whatever. But it's kind of morphed into people using other things as well. I use in mine, I do use recycled material. I also use some scraps from my scrapbooking. I what else do I use in there? Sometimes I go and I buy some embellishments like trinkets to put in there or stickers,
Hmm.
but dollar store type variety. So you're not spending a lot of money on it,
Hmm.
but you're using what you can find in your stash of things around our houses. And we always have some stuff sitting around.
Yeah. It's actually an art form I haven't delved into yet, but I'm intrigued. I have another friend who does that. And what I noticed with her is like they're called a junk journal, but in a lot of cases you couldn't really journal in them because they're more like a memory. I don't know, like so many cool artifacts that it'd be difficult to actually, journal in the way that I think of journaling. But they're
In
kind of,
mine, I leave room for journaling as well,
oh, good. Yeah.
or
Okay.
drawing. People could draw in them as well, or post pictures in that, like, save their pictures, things like that. But there's
Yeah.
also some of the other stuff in there.
Yeah. So what I really liked about what you just said was how it's a creative outlet, like it's almost like therapy because you don't have to think. I think there's a fair bit of thinking because you're making artistic choices about what looks good where, but it's a different kind of thinking. It's sort of allowing your
Mhm.
brain to go, I don't know, right side, if you will, or something without too much trying to work things out. I don't know.
But
What
there's not really a right or wrong way to do things.
yeah.
It's really individual and unique. Each one turns out differently. You use some of the same basic principles, I guess,
Mhm.
as to how you bind them and things like that. But otherwise, it's really your imagination is what limits you.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was interesting too that you said like one of your characters was going to be doing that, and so you thought, well, I better at least know what I'm talking about a little bit. Was there anything else, like now that you enjoy that as a pastime? Is there any other, reasons why you turned to that art form? Um, to help you?
Mostly it's really good for my mental health
Yeah.
because it keeps my hands and my brain busy at the same time, but it takes me away from the chaos and pressures of everyday life,
Yeah.
but it also takes me away from things that have maybe very specific um, stitches like in crochet or knitting, or techniques that you might need in painting or drawing, which I am not a painter or a drawer.
Yeah.
And so this gives me a chance to try something different. Plus, I had scrapbooked for a number of years and had a lot of scraps that I needed to use up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because the whole part of, I guess, what I've been talking to people about while doing these interviews is what I'm, first of all, I'm struck by such a variety of ways that people are creative, but that creativity, like we need that kind of an outlet, so you're doing junk journals, somebody else is building using Lego, some people it's more just stick to writing, maybe poetry, but when they don't normally write poems, but poems, are a way to kind of decompress. Painting seems to come up a lot, and drawing and things like that. Sewing. It just seems like there's so many creative ways that people use, and how often the creativity seems to be linked to sort of chaos. Like being creative kind of helps us to navigate the chaos of life, I suppose, in some
It
ways.
does.
Yeah, yeah,
Although creating junk journals creates its own chaos because you you get all this stuff out and get to choose through it. And even that is part of the therapy, if you will, and the
yeah,
creativity, where you're actually touching the pieces and you're deciding which ones, and instead of just glancing at them on the shelf or something like that, right?
yeah, yeah. I think I could imagine myself if I was doing it. It's not like you're making, okay, I have a picture in my mind and this is how I'm going to put it together. You have all that variety, almost like you say, the chaos there, and then you pick and choose.
Hmm. But it's a different type of chaos. That it's a kind of a creative chaos in a lot of ways.
So what you're saying, like I really appreciate what you're saying about that whole side of creativity. Now you also have a poem in the anthology, and
Hmm.
it's called Stillness. I haven't actually read most of the pieces in the anthology, so I'm not sure, what it's about or what inspired you. But do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
I live on a busy street in the city, and so often there is a lot of um, noise outside, whether it's cars going by or sirens, or even when they're not really loud, then there's the birds in the tree outside and the crows are cawing and things like that. And I thought sometimes we just need the quiet and the stillness. And so I imagined what it would be like to just have that stillness instead of all the sirens and the crows and all the rest of it, where you could just let that creativity and decompress, basically. So that's where that poem came from.
So do you write a lot of poetry? Is that something that you do?
No, well, I always say I'm not a poet. And a number of years ago, my one granddaughter told me that what she wanted for her birthday was for me to go to a poetry writing workshop with her. And so that's what I did. And then we had to write poems when we got there. And I found that sometimes they just come.
Mhm.
And other times I couldn't write one if I sat and tried for hours and hours. So it just really varies.
It's interesting to me though that you say I don't consider myself a poet, because I have heard you say, "Oh, I don't consider myself a writer," or "I don't consider myself, a speaker," and all these things. And you've written like a number of books, novels and nonfiction and devotionals. And you do quite like you have quite a, I would say, a rigorous speaking circuit you've done over the years, going to camps and different things like that. Um, just tell us a little bit maybe more about that side of your life, some of your other writing endeavors.
Well, I do have a number of different things, and sometimes I look at them and I am absolutely amazed that I actually wrote them because I never did consider myself a writer. I'm starting to a little bit,
Good. That's
but
good. I'm glad to hear it.
what's that?
I said, I'm glad to hear that you're starting to consider yourself a writer. It's about time. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it took me a while.
Yeah.
And the speaking, well, that started quite by accident in a way, and yet God has a way of bringing it to our attention, something He wants us to do, and just allows it to happen and makes a way where we didn't think there was one. So I started speaking at a ladies' retreat because I got asked to do it. And I went with much fear and trepidation, I must admit. And the ladies in the Bible study I was with said, well, why don't you go do it? And we'll pray for you. So off I went, and that's what started it. And from there, other people heard about it. And so I did a number of ladies' retreats. And then I was at a one-day one, and this pastor's wife, it was, I guess, they had a little tiny church camp. Like they ran it for like 3 weeks in the summer. And she asked if I'd ever considered speaking at kids' camp, which I hadn't. And she asked me to try it, and I did. And that started the camp speaking. Camp speakings in the summer, women's retreats and events are in the wintertime. So it all worked. And the writing, I often get a chance to share about myself a little bit to the people that are there, especially at the ladies' retreats,
Yeah.
and often can bring my books, especially ones that are like memoir and devotionals, the nonfiction ones. And it's a good fit together, actually.
Yes. Well, and you also do workshops. I've been in some of your workshops. You've done workshops, writing workshops and things like that too. So you have quite a broad array of talents and things ways that God is using you and your writing gifts and your creativity in a multitude of different ways.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder how it all fits together, and yet it all fits under the umbrella, I would say, of storytelling.
Oh, yes. Perfect. Because I love that because yes, you've written novels as well. And I think that yeah, you are good at telling stories, like even if they're not, real life events, memoirs, or even in like some of your speaking, object lessons, it's kind of there it is very much a storytelling thing for sure. You're a
It
storyteller.
is.
Good.
I am. I'm a storyteller.
Yes, you are. That's great. I love that. That's really good that you've brought that out. So, well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today? Like what you might be working on recently or any other special events coming up?
I just finished doing a camp. It's the only one I'm doing this summer. So that was exciting. It was little kids and lots of story time, which is fun. And writing wise, I am working on small things, little short pieces, doing some editing of some of my other short pieces that I've had critiques on and haven't had the time to put them into the piece and see how it works. So
Mm.
that's more or less what I'm working on now. I don't have any big projects. My last book of my uh, fiction series, Prairie Hope, came out in May. Yeah, May. And so I should, promote it, but I've been a little slow on the draw of doing that as well.
Well, one other thing I find with you is you're very humble. So you're not always out there self-promoting, but you do have such a wealth of things, various different things that for people to enjoy. And I think another theme that's kind of come up during these interviews that I've been doing is how God uses, well, first of all, often uses trials and chaos in our lives as a way, as for us to then grow, but also then in turn we can share that with other people, and hopefully, they can find encouragement and things through what we've been through. Have you found that to be true in your journey?
It has been. It has been. The tough times or chaotic times are the times where there's lessons to be learned, and you run to the end of yourself, run out of yourself, and you have to depend on God, which we should do all the time. But we sometimes forget about it when things are going nice and easy and the chaos isn't there, the tough times aren't there. And so I find that that's when I have learned a lot. And it's also allowed me to have empathy with others who are going through similar things. And that comes through, I think, in the stories and the sharing and the devotionals that I write. Everyday moments, whether they're tough ones or whether they're just ordinary ones, are ways that God uses to show me different things in His Word and how that applies, and then has me share that with others.
That is really awesome and wonderful, and it's been so nice to see you today and to talk to you a little bit. Well, thank you so
Yes.
much, Carol. I really appreciate talking to you today and seeing you, as I said, and I just pray for many, many blessings on you and all of your work and all the things that God is calling you to do. You are a blessing to other people. I hope you know that too.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
That's an encouragement. It
good.
really is.
All right.
Yes.
Well, God bless you. See you again soon.